Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Young here and welcome to every new information about Metal Gear Solid 5 from TGS 2014. In this video, I have compiled all the new information that has been publicly shared through gameplay footage and through Japanese commentary during their presentation. Sources for translation include Metal Gear Informer, MGS.be, and Junker HQ, along with translation from my own team comprised of Claude Smith and David Sun. Keep in mind that I have yet to perform an analysis on any of the footage. This is all information that was directly shared with the audience. The analysis will come later, so stay tuned. Anyways, there's a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. I would like to begin by talking about new information in regards to story. During TGS 2014, Kojima reiterated that the game's themes are race, conflict, the cycle of revenge, war, and loss. The themes in Phantom Pain are much darker than those of past Metal Gear games, and as a result, players can expect a much darker story, and what Snake and his men will go through in Phantom Pain will be very painful. Now, something that was mentioned is that Snake and Kaz are the most hell-bent on revenge. Ocelot, on the other hand, will act more as a neutral party and will be more collected in all of this. Apart from the darker tone, another element that differentiates Metal Gear Solid 5's story from past games of the franchise is non-linearity. The story in this game will unfold differently for each player depending on how they play through the game. It was even mentioned that Phantom Pain can be played without meeting certain characters like Quiet. Meeting these characters do open up some subplots, but they aren't mandatory to complete the game. Speaking of characters, a number of details were released about Metal Gear Solid 5's cast. In one of the TGS 2014 events, Akira Otsuka, the voice actor for Snake, took the stage to talk about what it was like to play Snake. He mentions that this isn't the usual Snake, and that Snake's experiences have changed him. He hasn't necessarily fallen to the dark side, but it's more like he is exerting his own sense of justice, no longer bound by any nation or organization. It was also mentioned that the relationship between Kaz, Snake, and Ocelot is complicated in Phantom Pain. We saw glimpses of this in the TGS 2014 cutscene when Big Boss decides to keep Quiet alive and keep her as a companion when Kaz insists that she should not be trusted. Sprinkling Quiet into the mixture doesn't help matters. Not to say that Snake and Kaz are not friends with a common goal, but since they are both in a more volatile state of mind, some friction is to be expected. Akira Otsuka also noted that Snake won't be talking much in this game, noting that he doesn't have as many lines as he used to. This did allow him to spend more time with every line to ensure that they were delivered perfectly, but this is definitely a more quiet Snake who will show his thoughts and emotions through subtle body movements and facial expressions, the latter of which are performed by Kiefer Sutherland. The character of Kaz was also discussed a bit during TGS 2014. The man is in a lot of pain after losing his limbs in Afghanistan, both physically and emotionally, and this pain will be represented by the way he walks after the fact. Kaz was described as a very smart and unpredictable character. It was stated that throughout the game, players won't know what Kaz will do next. We've already seen Kaz take matters into his own hands in unpredictable ways in Peace Walker, even if he did do it for the future of MSF. And now that Kaz is in a less stable state of mind, it'll be interesting to see just how far the character will go to achieve his goals. There was also some talk about Ocelot during one of the events. His Japanese voice actor described Ocelot to be very attached to Snake in Phantom Pain. His admiration for Naked Snake began all the way back in Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and he's always had a sense of loyalty and devotion towards him since, so it'll be interesting to see how their relationship develops in Phantom Pain. Ocelot was also described to be a very cool character in his 40s. In fact, it was said that he was designed to be the coolest character in the game. I suppose that means we can expect to see some badass action from him at various points. One final note that was shared about Ocelot by Kaz's Japanese voice actor was that Ocelot is not the kind of person one should turn their back on. To me, it sounds like Ocelot is not the kind of person you want to double-cross. After all, Ocelot is the master of double-crossing, or hell, even triple-crossing. Next, I would like to talk about Quiet. She was one of the most mysterious characters when she was revealed back in E3 2013, but some light has been shed upon her during TGS 2014. Right off the bat, I would like to get out of the way that Quiet is not Chico, for those who are still holding on to that. Kojima himself confirmed this during one of the events. She is described to be a young and very scary female character. A lot of what makes her scary comes from her powers. Based on what I saw in the TGS 2014 cutscene, it seems as though one of her powers is something akin to invisibility rather than disintegration or teleportation, as noted by the fact that Diamond Dog soldiers could find her using thermal goggles. She also seems to possess superhuman agility, as noted by her ability to traverse the ground extremely quickly and jump incredible distances. The concept for her character was a naked sniper, according to Kojima. While Shinkawa was designing her character, he was asked to peel off layers of clothes to simplify her design. That may sound like Kojima was sexualizing the character for fan service, but he promises that she has a background and reasons for why she dresses the way she does. It was also stated that the way she dresses ties into her weakness and her story in general. This reminds me of a particular scene in the E3 2014 trailer where we see Quiet fully clothed and subdued by a Soviet guard. Perhaps her powers really do have something to do with her skin being exposed to the sun, but this is just a theory and no confirmation has been given, so don't quote me on any of this. Another character that was mentioned, even if briefly, is Code Talker. All that was stated about him is that the character speaks in code, under the assumption that he is a Navajo code talker, which is highly likely the case considering that his voice actor, Jay Tavare, is of Navajo descent himself. It's safe to say that Code Talker will be speaking in the coded language that he used to send encrypted messages to American soldiers during World War II for secret communication. And the fact that Code Talker is likely related to World War II could mean that perhaps we'll get more information on the boss and the Cobra unit. Finally, for characters, Hideo Kojima addressed a statement he made a while back that Metal Gear Solid 5 would bring back a character that he had killed off before. Most people interpreted this as bringing back a character thought to be dead from a past game, but he clarified that what he meant was that he brought back a character he had created for Phantom Pain who was initially cut during development. And that's it for characters. Let's move on to the meat of the TGS 2014 presentations, gameplay. A lot of great stuff was revealed, but what stood out by far was the game's support buddy system. It is an optional system that allows players to bring companions with them in the field to provide aid in their missions. Up to 4 companions can be brought into a mission at a time, as noted by the fact that Diamond Dog's choppers have 4 seats aside from Snake's. It was suggested that some missions may not allow for support buddies, but most will. Confirmed support buddies so far include the horse, the wolf named Diamond Dog or DD, and Quiet. A lot of people asked whether Ocelot would be a support buddy, and while he was initially set to be one, Kojima stated that currently it's up in the air. Kojima noted how Ocelot would be needed to protect Mother Base, since Kaz is still going through rehabilitation after losing his limbs, and that there is a certain balance that needs to be kept. He also noted that programming a support buddy is a lot of work, which means he can't go around making any one character or animal a support buddy willy-nilly. Acquiring a support buddy can be done in various ways. When it comes to human characters, if players meet certain characters, they will eventually become available as a support buddy. I say if because, as I mentioned before, players may not meet certain characters like Quiet, who is one of many support buddies. And even after meeting these characters, whether players will be able to use them as a support buddy will depend on the strength of the bond between Snake and them. Kojima didn't go much into this, but there will be some kind of system that will allow players to get closer to key characters, thereby unlocking more commands and abilities in the field. In the African Jungle gameplay, the player was showing off a build in which Snake and Quiet shared a strong bond, which is why she had so many available commands. On the other hand, if Snake's relationship with a character is too weak, that character will not be able to be deployed as a support buddy. When it comes to support buddies like animals, players may find stray animals during their missions, like the wolf cub shown during one of the TGS 2014 demos. If players choose to rescue these animals and Fulton them back to base, Ocelot will take the time to train them so they can later be used as companions in the field. Based on the footage shown at TGS 2014, it looks like raising and training an animal can take several days. Another way to take animals in as companions is by meeting them. The horse, for example, is the same one that Ocelot used to rescue Snake from the hospital. Ocelot likely passed the already trained horse down to Snake, allowing players to use the horse during missions. There may be other ways to acquire support buddies, but so far, this is all we know. One final thing to note about support buddies is that they are not immortal. Support buddies in Metal Gear Solid 5 can die, and once they do, they will be dead for good, and there is no turning back. Therefore, it is imperative that players take good care of their support buddies. Kojima noted that the death of support buddies will not affect the game's main story, meaning that the game can still be completed without them, but the death of a support buddy does likely mean that players may not be able to explore certain subplots. Moving on, I would like to talk about the game world of the Phantom Pain. These worlds were meticulously constructed to resemble their real-life counterparts. Kojima actually researched and gathered real-life data of locations like the Afghanistan desert and the African jungle to construct the various maps that players will be traversing in Phantom Pain. Each of these worlds are absolutely humongous. Kojima noted that the African jungle in particular is so vast that players would easily get lost if it wasn't for the iDroid and the ability to place markers on the map. Like in Afghanistan, the African jungle map will allow players to take any route and use any method to accomplish their mission, starting with their landing zone. In Phantom Pain, players choose where their chopper drops them for most missions, and as the chopper makes its approach to its landing zone, players can choose to get out at any time, but doing so at the wrong moment could mean getting Snake killed. Something to keep in mind is that Morpho won't be able to land choppers in dense areas like forests or jungles. In other words, for both insertion and extraction, players will have to find an open area for the chopper to land. Now, something interesting that was mentioned during one of the events is that players don't necessarily have to use a chopper to go from location to location. It was hinted that players can choose to walk, although doing so was ill-advised since it would take quite a long time. Players could use a faster mode of transportation like the horse, but it was noted that certain maps like the African jungle isn't suited for efficient horseback traversal due to all the obstructive flora, fauna, and terrain. Once players make their way into a game world, most of their time will be spent completing a mission. According to Kojima, most missions will take at least 30 minutes to complete first time through, and of course there will be some that will take quite a bit more. One neat feature about Phantom Pain is that players don't have to go back to Mother Base to accept new missions. Players can accept new missions in the field, allowing them to tackle multiple missions at a time if they so desire. This should give the game's open worlds an RPG feel to them, which I think is great. In the field, players can traverse the environment in a variety of new ways. One new ability of Snake's is that he can now rock climb any surface with cracks on it. Players who can spot these kinds of surfaces will find themselves reaching their target location much faster than they would by taking more conventional paths. Now, something to keep in mind is that rock climbing does put Snake in a vulnerable state, so I think it's safe to say that it's ill-advised to rock climb when there are enemies nearby or during alert status. The African jungle gameplay also showed off a ton of new gear. I would like to begin by talking about the new sneaking suit, which clearly draws inspiration from the suit that Solid Snake wore during the Shadow Moses incident. Big Boss's suit is made of a strong, heat-resistant material called aramid fibers, and it comes with sound-absorbing boots, which should make it a lot easier to sneak behind enemies. In Metal Gear Solid 5, players will have to develop these suits back in Mother Base before they can be used, and once developed, players can likely freely switch back and forth between any suit within Mother Base. In the field, however, the process of switching outfits is significantly more time-consuming. Unlike in Metal Gear Solid 3, in which players could go to a menu and instantaneously switch between outfits, players must rely on their support unit to essentially deliver Snake a desired suit, as shown in the African jungle gameplay. This should force players to think ahead about the kind of suit or camo that they'll be using before infiltrating a heavily guarded area. Players can also choose to wear a naked outfit like in Metal Gear Solid 3 and Peace Walker, although if past games are any indication, the only reason anyone would want to do that is to make the game more challenging. Along with being able to develop new suits, players can also develop new prosthetic arms, each with different designs and functions. The red arm we have seen already is what players will likely start with, since it doesn't have any special functions, but eventually players will be able to develop prosthetics like the yellow stun arm shown during the African jungle gameplay, which allows Snake to charge up his arm and deliver 1.2 million volts worth of electricity. According to Kojima, some arms will have some surprising functionalities, one of them being what he referred to as rocket punch. He didn't say much else, but the rocket punch feature could refer to what Zadornov did with his prosthetic arm right before he died. Another new piece of gear that Kojima briefly hinted at was a weather modification technology that will allow players to shift weather to their liking for certain situations. He didn't go into much detail, but my assumption is that this piece of gear will allow players to, say, call in a sandstorm in the Afghanistan desert, or call in heavy rain in the African jungle at any time. That is a lot of power to give to players, so I hope it's balanced out with something like high cost per use or high cooldown time. Other new gear include the decoy balloon and the pin radar. The decoy balloon is a disc-like throwable object that inflates a balloon of a character once activated, luring enemies and keeping them distracted. So far, characters we've seen appear as balloons include Snake himself and Lisa from PT. Each character balloon will feature unique sound effects as well. The Snake balloon, for example, will play a recording of phrases like "kept you waiting, huh?" or "you're pretty good," while the Lisa balloon will play one of various disturbing noises that the spectral creature emits in PT. As for the pin radar, it serves a very similar purpose to the active sonar in MGS3, which is to detect life forms from humans to animals around Snake. But this time, detected targets are shown directly in the game world rather than through some radar. The pin radar does make some noise when Snake strikes the ground to activate it, so it is better to use it as far away from enemies as possible. One final new item I would like to discuss is the Phantom Cigar. Kojima noted that players should be careful with this item, since certain missions will have time limits, and using the Phantom Cigar too much could result in mission failure. In the African Jungle demo, for example, using the cigar too much would have led to the death of the POW that Snake is supposed to rescue. As for returning gear, the most notable of them was the analyzer from Peace Walker, but unlike in Peace Walker, the analyzer will now be integrated with the binoculars rather than acting as a separate item. Now, don't expect the binoculars to have this function right off the bat. Like many other items, binoculars can be upgraded with new functionalities through Mother Base's R&D unit, and one such upgrade is the analyzer. And that about sums up all the new gameplay details that was publicly shared with audiences. I'm sure there are more details hidden throughout the various TGS 2014 footage, but I'll save that for my analysis. Moving on, I would like to talk about a few neat details about the Fox engine. According to Kojima, the Fox engine facilitated multi-platform development, and its efficiency reduced development costs by 1/5. That is a pretty big achievement. Its efficiency is in large part attributed to the engine's flexibility, which allows level designers to do most of the work themselves without having to consult programmers all the time. The simplicity of the engine's level editor allows designers to do about 80% of the work themselves, a feat not possible with past engines. This means designers can focus more on the game design and less on the technicalities behind realizing their vision. I would like to conclude this video by sharing release information for Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Unfortunately, Kojima did not give a specific release date, but he did say that the game would launch sometime in 2015. He also said that after 5 years of development, the game is nearly complete, and that it's shaping up to be the game he wanted to develop 27 years ago. The fact that Kojima is stating confidently that the game is nearing its completion could be indication that the game will launch sometime in early 2015, perhaps around the same time that Ground Zeroes launched. Speaking of Ground Zeroes, players who bought and finished Ground Zeroes will get something really cool in Phantom Pain. Kojima didn't drop any hints, so I suppose we will find out what that bonus is as Phantom Pain nears release. And that is every information revealed about Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain through Tokyo Game Show 2014, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to my analysis of all the new footage, and to be further updated on Metal Gear Solid 5, be sure to join the nation and subscribe to Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, and Young out.